This is Season 4, Episode 6 of my modular journey, and today we're looking at a monster of a module, the WMD Performance Mixer LE and accessories. I picked up the WMD Performance Mixer on November 23rd of 2023. This package you see here costs $1,120, so it's very pricey for a eurorack module, but understand the mixer is this bit right here, from these jacks to this phone jack here, and then over here is the PM mutes extension, like an add-on, and then over here is PM channels to add 2 more stereo channels. So there is a little bit more to this than just the mixer itself. So what is this guy? The WMD PM is an 8-channel mixer that, while designed for live performances, I find it amazingly useful in my general patching and mixing of my generative creations. Having so many channels with gain, level, pan, Aux sends, and returns, it's pretty astounding how much you can do with this gigantic, by eurorack standards, mixing console in modular format. Some of the main features are 6 mono channels with switchable and or summed inputs, so that's 12 mono inputs, 2 true stereo channels. Each channel has a 30 dB gain boost, an Aux send, a pan left and right, and a main fader with pre and post send options here. So each channel also has the CV options for modulating level and pan. And then over here there's a Aux send for channel 1 and channel 2, and that's because here in the Aux part you have a 1 or off or 2 for Aux send. Where do you want to send this channel through the Aux mix to something else, like an effect or something like that. I also bought the LE version, so it came with the PM channels expander over here, which gives me 4 more stereo inputs. There's an A and a B, and then summed, again, A, B, or summed of 2 different stereo inputs per channel, and a plethora of CV options.
Oh, yes. You have a plethora.
Jefe, what is a plethora?
Why, guapo?
Well, you told me I have a plethora. I would not like to think that a person would tell someone he has a plethora and find out that that person has no idea what it means to have a plethora.
Lastly, I also picked up the PM Mutes expander over here. Mutes, of course, mutes the channels individually, or with the press of the control button here, you can stage a bunch of muting or unmuting and then let go and it switches. So that's pretty cool. So why did I choose this monster mixer? The only other big mixer I was looking at was the Bifaco Hex Mix setup, but that seemed even bigger than the WMD Performance Mixer, and I didn't like the idea of having to stack Bifaco vertically in my case to use it. I'm not sure if that's a requirement or just recommended layout, but regardless, I wanted the WMD PM to actually fit in its own 60 HP case outside of my main case eventually. As far as how I plan to use it, well, I'll give you a hint. It's going to mix my stuff. Up until now, I was using 2 4-channel ST Mix modules by Bifaco for simple volume control over my signals before coming to the outs module and then off to my DAW. This worked pretty good, but I wanted to start gaining control over things like pan, so where my signal sits in the mix, without having to direct input every signal out of the modular to my DAW. So with the WMD PM, I now have more inputs than I know what to do with. I love the option to Aux send portions of a track or multiple tracks to a mono delay or reverb and return that effect signal to a stereo channel for mixing. This frees up the ST Mix modules to do what they're best at: multiple signals into an effects module before coming to WMD PM for the final mix. I think at this point the only thing I'm missing is an EQ module that doesn't suck. As far as demonstrating this mixer, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because it's a mixer. It does what it does, but I will show some of the signal routing and things that I use it for anyway. I've already done a number of videos using WMD Mix, so I'll link a couple of those down in the description for you to check out. Meanwhile, let's get this guy set up. The first thing we, of course, need is output. Over here on the right, you can see the last 2 jacks are called out. So it's out left and out right. So I'll take my left out. I'm going directly to my outs module now, so this is going directly to the DAW from here. Hang on, I got some wire problems. Got wires with minds of their own. All right, so Now the thing we want to do is get some kind of sound into the mixer. So let's start with rings over here. Rings is usually my first channel. So let me grab some wires. Let me hook up rings to Kara, or I guess Kara to rings, using just something to just generate some sound. I'm going to take T3 and X3. So trigger 3 to strum here. Where's strum? This guy to volt per octave. All right, so we're now strumming a note here in rings. You can't hear it yet. And I'm going to come out of rings. I'm going to come straight to the mixer for now just to start this off. So I'm going to turn up the master out here a ways just so we can start hearing something. I just had to fight with rings because it's been a long time since I've used it, and I had all the knobs and everything twisted all over hell and back. So I finally got something that sounded decent again. So here we go. I've got Kara going to rings, and it's just playing a little plucky thing. And you can hear it's pretty quiet because I have it going into the mixer and I don't have any of the gain turned up. But here's how that gain would work. I would turn this up a little to bring some of the volume up if I wanted to. Now down below that is a pan, and believe me, this is 90% of the reason I wanted a real mixer in my rack is because of this pan option here. So now check it out, you're going to go to the left ear. Panning. Go to the right ear. So now basically what I'm saying is I could put rings finally anywhere I want in my mix. It doesn't have to be right down the center anymore. So with that in mind, now that sounds a little boring. The ring doesn't really have any effects. Let's send some effects somewhere. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab yet more wires. The mixer has two different ways of sending. You can send the entire mix, which is what we're going to start with, using these send and returns over here, or you could also use Aux Sends over here to the side through these jacks over here. But I'm going to start with the big one first. What it's going to do is send everything in the entire mix. So here's left and right, going to monsoon over here. And then from monsoon, we're going to come back using the return. And now monsoon being monsoon, I can now crank up the reverb. And now we raise the dB again on rings. And we start getting a much bigger, more beautiful sound. This does, of course, mean that every single thing I plug into this mixer goes to the same effect loop over here, though. So sometimes we might not want that. So see, now chainsaw is also going to monsoon as well. So we may not want that. So what do we do if that's the case? If I want to set up an Aux Send now, I will take something out of this Aux Send 1 over here. Let's go, for example, over here to Disting Mark IV, which is set up as a ping pong stereo delay. It takes a mono input, which is what this is, mono. And then what comes back from Disting is, of course, a stereo signal. Now, where would I stick this, you ask? Nicely. I'm going to actually come back in to a stereo channel on the mixer. So that way the ping pong is automatically panned left and right. So I'm going to use channel 7 to return from Disting. Here's what post fade sounds like. Is of course it sends a portion of this signal to the effect loop after the volume of this fader. But what you can also do is switch this to pre-fade, which means it's going to take all of the signal and send it to the effect regardless of what the volume of this is. So the net effect of that is, here's rings, but here's rings with its delay. And what this allows you to do then is you can then turn down the raw signal and get mostly the affected signal from the loop over here, which has its purposes. So the other good part about this, now that we just set up one effect loop, because in the normal world, here's disting sitting over here. Disting has one audio input jack, and you could put like 4 mono signals into an ST mix, for instance, and then take all 4 of those into disting. You can now send a bunch of things to disting to get that echoey effect. So for that, let me set up one more quick sound. So I want T1 to trigger, because we say this is probably where the song starts falling apart because I'm not planning very good here. But let me put this actually into channels 3 and 4 instead of 7 and 8. I just panned 3 and 4 to different sides. Let me use the boosting here to get it a little bit louder. And now I want to send a portion of that signal again to the delay. And now once again, if I want to wash the whole damn thing in reverb, I can send the entire mix to Monsoon or any other stereo reverb tank. And just start getting interesting sounds here. Well, interesting to me. So it's something like that anyway. Yeah, let me show panning automation here real quick. What I want to do is take an LFO from Batumi. I'm going to modulate the panning of rings. So that'll be pretty simple. I'm just going to take a sine wave here. I'm going to plug it into channel 1's pan, CV, and then crank up the volume here a little bit. You should hear rings moving around. Let's actually turn these guys down for a moment. All right, so let's move rings around. And with Batumi, it has a built-in attenuator, so I can turn down the amount of LFO to just make it subtle, or I can make it crazy. And I can also take this panning, I can move it to level, for instance, so it actually does tremolo. So that's just interesting. And then of course there's the muting. I can mute everybody or mute the Aux Send. So it's all pretty cool. Lots of stuff in here, lots and lots of stuff. And the most important part for me, of course, is getting all of my voices to a central location, being able to set their levels, being able to set their pans, being able to use effects loops if I choose to. especially with the mono sends here. So this is what I think the newer version of the mixer does, is I think the newer version lets you send stereo. But I have mono effects like disting here. I also have Pico DSP over here, which is a mono. I also have Timizora, which has the capability of doing 2 effects in one patch. So you could put a left is the delay, the right is a flanger or something like that. And so those would actually return nicely back to here. I look forward to messing with all of that stuff. But anyway, I think that is it for all I cared to do with the WMD Mixer. It's got a little bit longer than I thought. I love getting in here with rings, for instance, and just letting it play quietly all day long. It just sounds so damn beautiful to me. So that is truly it for the WMD Performance Mixer version 1, or the earlier version, not the one that's available today. Coming up next is the Make Noise Pressure Points module, which I'm really looking forward to playing with that one. So stay tuned for that.